Welcome to Compass Points, the weekly podcast for CompassKnox.com. CompassKnox.com is your best source for news and politics in Knoxville and Knox County. Your hosts today are Scott Barker and Jesse Mayshark, the founders of CompassKnox.com. You can find their daily in-depth coverage and subscribe at CompassKnox.com. The Compass Point podcast is brought to you in conjunction with Almost an Agreement. Almost an Agreement is a layman's attempt to get a handle on the workings in government and politics that we deal with every day. Check them out at almostanagreement.com or subscribe for free on your favorite podcast provider. If you'd like to learn more about the topics discussed on today's podcast, go to CompassKnox.com and subscribe for in-depth coverage and much more. And now, here are your hosts, Scott and Jesse from CompassKnox.com.
Hello and welcome again to Compass Points, the weekly podcast where we talk about Knoxville government, politics, news, business, education, really whatever gets our attention. I'm Jesse Mayshark, co-founder and co-publisher of Compass, which you can find at CompassKnox.com. Joined remotely this week, we're all remote this week for meteorological and other reasons, by Scott Barker, also co-founder and co-publisher of Compass. How are you doing, Scott?
Staying home and staying dry. We're doing this on Friday, and we're just waiting for Hurricane Helene to move through and do what she's going to do to us, which I hope is not anywhere close to what she's doing to Florida and Georgia.
Yeah, for sure. I'm looking out my window right now. It's a little rainy, a little blowy, but certainly not apocalyptic in any way. So anyway, I hope everybody listening, by the time you hear this, Helene will have moved on, but I hope everybody has fared okay through this storm. Handful of things to talk about this week. University of Tennessee, Knoxville Chancellor Donde Plowman had an announcement about her future plans. We take a look at the Knoxville Police Department's Tender Loving Care. It is an approach to violence reduction in East Knoxville. We'll talk about that. Take a look at the District 18 race for the State House. This is probably the most watched local race, with Republican incumbent Elaine Davis facing a challenge from Democrat Bryan Goldberg. And Scott, to start out, thought we could talk a little bit about Knoxville Area Transit's plans to update their payment options. And this generated a little bit of controversy and a little bit of discussion this week. And ultimately, they backed off some of what they were talking about. So what's up with Cat?
Well, Cat was looking at modernizing how people pay when they get on the bus, their fares. And one of the issues that they have been dealing with is that the fare boxes, where you go and you put your money in and maybe get change for your ride, those fare boxes, the manufacturer does not support them anymore. They're breaking down. They're having to cannibalize, some to keep others going, the parts, and also what they originally proposed doing. They're calling this Cat Pay. Is that you would be able to pay through your smartphone, through the app, or with a fee card you could buy at the transit center downtown, but you wouldn't be able to use cash. Mm-hmm. It's cost prohibitive to replace all of those with new fare boxes that do all those things. So I wanted just to eliminate cash, and you could, do it with your smartphone or your pay card. But of course, there's a lot of resistance because there are a lot of people out there who don't use banking. They don't. They don't bank. They just live on cash, and a lot of those people use the bus. So there was a lot of pushback, and CAT wound up saying, "Well, okay, we will keep the cash option, and beginning in February of 2025, you can still use cash, but these machines that they're going to use are just going to be able to accept cash. They can't make change or anything else. So you have to use exact change whenever you ride the bus if you pay in cash moving forward." So,
what are the advantages? Because I know even with maintaining a cash option, which they are, at least for now, but what are the advantages that CAT sees to trying to encourage people to moving toward this like card-based or phone-based if you have a phone system?
Well, the big advantage for riders, people who use the system, is that they CAT can institute what's called fare capping, and what that means is that you would not have to pay more in a day or a month than a daily or monthly bus pass would cost. Right now, it's $2 for a day pass, $30 for a monthly pass. Especially on the monthly passes, a lot of people who use the bus don't have a spare $30 every once a month right at that moment. So they will, it's that way when you're, and I know it's certainly that way in times of my life when I've been financially challenged. It's like, well, yeah, it would be cheaper if I could buy a monthly pass, but I can't afford a monthly pass. So I'll pay every day. And you end up paying more than $30 over the course of the month, but you can do it because those payments are spread out. And what this would do is it would allow people who don't have $30 up front. Once they hit $30 over the course of a month, the rest of the rides are free. So
as long as they have that pass, because that's
as long as they have that pass, that's the thing. And the reason is they CAT can keep track of those. They would know how many times Scott Barker has ridden the bus in the month of September, and and if I've ridden it, to the equivalent of $30 worth of fares, and it's September 20th. Well, the final 10 days of the month, I get to ride for free. So,
and those cards are going to cost $4 themselves, but in the initial rollout, they're distributing them for free, right?
Yeah. There's this transitional period, and they're going to start. I believe it's October. They're going to actually start implementing this portion of it. And they're going to they're going to have the cards for free, and you can get them for $4, and beyond the rollout time. You do have to, even though they're free, you do have to get $4 on it to begin with, or at least during that period. So it's but what that does is every that will be what you present to the you go into the bus and you would run that through their reader, and somewhere in the cloud or something, they're going to note that you're riding this, and once you get to that threshold, that ends how much you're going to be paying. Right. So the idea is that this will wind up saving riders who use it money over the course of time, especially people who use the bus frequently.
Sure. So the timeline for all this, like you said, that's going to start in October, and then the changeover on the fare boxes where you're still going to be able to use cash, but it's going to have to be exact cash. That's going to come at the start of the year, right?
Right. Absolutely. And,
all right.
There are, it's funny. We had, looked at what other cities have done, and there aren't many who tried this. Dayton, Ohio,
going totally cashless. You mean?
Yeah, and totally cashless. Santa Monica, California did it, but they found that it didn't work very well, so they went back to taking cash. Dayton, Ohio has not done that, but the thing is fares. You've been able to buy passes and things like that. Only about 9% of the rides that people use on cab buses are paid for with cash. So it's not, it's not a huge number of people who would have had difficulties adjusting, but still, that's still quite a few. And people need to
probably a lot of
depend on the bus.
Yeah, and those are probably a lot of the most economically challenged of CATS riders.
Absolutely, and they, one of the things is for those of us with automobiles, the bus is an option. For those who do not have automobiles, the bus is the only option. So they will, CAT is going to be looking at this. I think that they will be monitoring this and see how people use it, see how people adjust to it, and possibly will go totally cashless in the future if they feel like they can do that.
Right. If they've successfully moved over people to the cards.
Yeah. Well, and just because you can use cash doesn't mean that people who normally use cash wouldn't make that adjustment. I'm sure the CAT's going to be trying to persuade them to buy the smart cards and use those instead, and kind of if they're able to get that, a good number of people who will switch over to that, they may end up dropping the cash option altogether. And you got to remember, you got to pay. You don't get change. You have to have exact change for your. So if you go in, if all you have is a $5 bill when you get on the bus, that's what your ride is going to cost. So instead of one, so that's the trade-off. There is they're not going to be able to make change.
Right. Well, I guess we'll see what happens. Mm-hmm. Another thing we took a look at this week is that race in District 18. And Scott, this is a district people have talked about a lot in recent years. It is currently held by Elaine Davis, a Republican. Prior to her, it was held by Eddie Manis, also a Republican, although as people may remember, he kind of ended up at odds with a lot of members of his own party during his time in office there. And the last time around, they redistricted this seat. Well, the whole state got redistricted after the 2020 election. But what they did to this one, and I think we all assumed that the goal of this redistricting was to make it more of a safe Republican seat, because they took out some areas of West Knoxville that were in it that had been trending sort of more Democratic leaning, and they added on a whole chunk of quite Republican South Knox County. And so now it's this kind of funny shaped district that kind of curves around from Northwest Knoxville, skirts around West Hills, that was one of the areas that got taken out of it, but does come through West Knoxville and then down across the river in South Knox County. And Davis in 2022, the first time she ran for this seat, she won it. It wasn't that close. It was a 54-46 race against Democrat Greg Kaplan. She won by almost 1,800 votes. So why, Scott, is this the district that Knox County Democrats have really been focusing on as a potential chance for a pickup here?
Well, one of the main reasons is that of the districts that have Republican representation now, it is still the closest. Mm-hmm. It's the one where they are within striking distance. Mm-hmm. Some of the other districts are, it would be a upset of huge proportions if they win those. But this one is a little bit closer. Like I said, there are these city precincts in this district, and where there are a lot of Democrats, and it will it could be close, and they also have a good candidate.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yes, and that is a big part of this for sure. I think Democrats are excited about Bryan Goldberg. He's a very sort of electorally attractive candidate. He certainly, he presents well. He's young. He has, an attractive family. They look good on the campaign mailers, but he's also somebody who's been very engaged in the community. He was a swimmer at the University of Tennessee. That's what first brought him to Knoxville. He was co-captain of the swim team. He swam for the U.S. national team. So, a competitive swimmer at a very high level. He was also in the honors program and the University of Tennessee Business School. He's worked in insurance since graduating from college and has been very active in the community. He was the president of the Knoxville Jewish Alliance for some years. He's been on a lot of local boards. He's been through Leadership Knoxville. He's been in 40 under 40, sort of like, your checklist of sort of like young civic engagement. He kind of hits all of those boxes. And he presents himself as, a moderate, pragmatic, common sense guy, which I think certainly, especially in those West Knox precincts of the district that we're talking about, I think he's trying to appeal not only to Democrats in those areas, but also to the more moderate Republicans in a lot of those areas where Davis did not do as well in 2022. Davis, I think in maybe somewhat in response to that challenge that she's facing, but in talking to her, what I thought was interesting was that she kind of came in, there was a bit of a sense that she was, part of the farther right faction in the local delegation. She was one of campaign consultant Eric Wyatt's candidates, and Wyatt's candidates tend to be a little bit more from the Trumpier side of the local Republican Party. But she really wanted to talk about her own kind of pragmatic common sense issues and things that she's been involved in, like trying to make sure that there's a school nurse in every public school, and being focused on, sort of more problem-solving type issues. She did not highlight her involvement in things like voting for the expulsion of the Tennessee Three, for example, which she did, or, supporting the state's abortion ban, which she does. I mean, she has been absolutely a reliable vote within the Republican caucus, including for some of their more controversial issues. But I think she is probably cannily trying to position herself as, look, I'm somebody who's over here in Nashville already being a common sense. You don't have to elect a common sense, pragmatic representative because that's already what I'm doing, right?
Yeah, she's, she is positioning herself as less of an ideologue than I think that Democrats would like to run against. They want to stake out that pragmatic, common sense ground in this district, especially, so I think that, when she's run before, I mean, she ran more as an ideologue last time than this time. So,
well, she certainly did, especially in 2022 in the Republican primary, where she ran against former city council member Janet Testerman. And definitely in that setting, Davis highlighted herself as the real conservative in the race and accused Testerman of being a rhino and all of that kind of thing. And she didn't have a primary challenge this year, so she didn't have to do that. She didn't have to present herself as that real kind of hard right standard bearer.
But it is interesting that both candidates are selling themselves as being pragmatists in this race, which is the one with the most it's got such partisan implications to it. So, Goldberg's got an uphill battle. Not only is he running against the incumbent, but as you mentioned, it was redistricted to be more Republican friendly than it had been in the past. So, it's a tall challenge, but as we said, Goldberg does present himself as a good candidate, and a lot of times to voters who are not necessarily real partisan, that matters. Being a good, the quality of the candidate matters, and he can be easy. He's attractive in that way.
Yeah. And he's also attracted a lot of donations. He has actually, for this election cycle, he has out fundraised Davis, raised over $80,000, where she's raised more in the vicinity of 60, which is still plenty. I mean, both of them have had plenty of money to run with, but definitely a sign of how much focus the Democrats are putting on this seat. And, you look at the state house, and you might wonder, given the scale of the hill Democrats have to climb, why would you put so much effort into this one race? But I think Democrats have decided that that's the only way. They currently only hold 25 out of 99 seats, or 24 out of 99 seats in the state house. And so they're looking for any district anywhere in the state where they even have a chance of flipping one of those seats, because what they're trying to do, in the near term, or maybe even in the near to medium range term, is not even take back control of the House. But if they could, they would love to get the Republicans under that supermajority margin, under the 2/3, where at least the Democrats would have a little bit more leverage legislatively, because right now they're effectively reduced to being spectators, because the Republicans, as long as the Republicans can hold their votes together, they can do just about anything they want to.
Yeah, I was talking to a prominent local Democrat a few weeks ago, and they said that they thought if Democrats could flip even as few as 3 or 4 seats in the House, that it would change the dynamics on Capitol Hill, and even though they would still be, the Republicans would still have a supermajority. Eating into that supermajority would have an effect on how things go in the House. Because right now, Democrats are complain that they don't get a chance to talk in committee, and they're restricted on how often how much they can speak on the floor. It's sometimes to the point of they don't even get recognized to speak, and things like that. And so and there aren't really there's no you know, repercussions for Republicans for doing that because they are in the supermajority. So, the possibility of changing the dynamics on the Hill is part of interest that Democrats from outside the 18th district or outside Knox County have in this race.
For sure. Well, and one other thing to mention here is that this race has seen a little bit of what we might call mudslinging, which Davis has said she has nothing to do with and wasn't even aware of it, but her House Republican caucus colleagues created a website and have been sending out text messages based on it, attacking Goldberg for being 3 months late in paying his property taxes in 2023. Goldberg has come out and said that this was actually the result of some identity theft that he and his wife had to deal with. There was a check fraud situation that led to some checks not going through, and they actually had to call the police about that and have it investigated and so forth. And that when they were notified that their property taxes were late, that they went in and rectified it, which they have. You can look at the public records on this. They didn't even have to pay a late fee or anything. They were just, because they had that explanation of why it was late. They've lived in this house since 2018. I looked at the records. They have paid on time every year except for 2023 when this issue happened with the check fraud. And Scott, I just have to say, you and I have both seen a lot of political attacks over time. We see these sort of like websites that pop up out of nowhere or mailers that show up out of nowhere accusing some candidate of something. But I have to say that even leaving aside the check fraud explanation for this, an attack ad based entirely on somebody being 3 months late, one time paying their property taxes is about as grasping for straws an attack as I've ever seen. Like that, my reaction when I saw that was, well, if this is the best you can do in terms of having, some sneak attack to go after somebody on, like that's just an incredibly flimsy thing to attack anybody on, being 3 months late on taxes.
Yeah, first of all, a lot of people are late paying property taxes. And there have been times in my career as a reporter that I've looked at things like that, and I found a candidate for an office, usually not state legislature. I don't think. I don't be a local office. Hadn't paid their taxes, and you call them up and ask them about it, and they go, "Oh, yeah, I forgot to do that. I'll go down and pay it." And they go down and pay it. And, you write about it, but
But it's one thing if there's a pattern, if somebody is 5 years delinquent on some blighted property or something, like you can see cases where that could be an issue. But something like this, where it's like 1 year out of 8 years that they've owned this house, they were a few months late. Again, even without the explanation of, here's why that payment was late. That just feels, maybe that had, of course, the attacks are spinning it as this is like they're calling him a tax cheat. And you have to expand the definition of tax cheat pretty dramatically in order to take in somebody being a couple months late 1 year paying property taxes.
Yeah.
Well, who knows whether that will have an effect on that race, but of course we will be watching that closely. And just a reminder that you can find our coverage of that race, and we will also have coverage in the coming weeks of our other local competitive legislative races at CompassKnox.com. Okay, Scott, let's talk about TLC. What is KPD doing with Project Tender Loving Care?
Well, Project TLC is a place-based crime fighting strategy, and it's really more than just KPD. It's a city initiative, and what they have done is they've gone out and they've done this in one place. Now they're going to be expanding it but they looked at the crime data, and one of the most violent areas of Knoxville is about a 7-block portion of East Knoxville that kind of goes on either side of Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue and between Cherry and Chestnut Streets. There are a lot in recent years. There have been a lot of shootings, both fatal shootings and non-fatal shootings there. And what they did is they said, okay, we're going to focus on this place, not necessarily on individuals, but on this place. And what they do is the Office of Community Safety, which is not part of KPD. They'll send in they've got violence interruption and violence prevention organizations that they use to do those kinds of things, and they go into this neighborhood and start interacting with the people who live there. But the Knoxville Police Department plays a huge role in this, and what they do is they do kind of what are enhanced patrolling in a way. They send police officers to this area a lot more. But one of the things they do is they send officers who are not responding to crime. They're not really patrolling. They're not responding. They just go to this area and they engage the residents, business owners, and the like, and really trying to build up a relationship, build up kind of a rapport with people who actually live there and are affected by violence, and in hopes that they will report more, that they will be able to, just be on the lookout more, trust the KPD more. That's the goal. And like I said, it's the kind of I don't want to say pilot, but they started out in this area of East Knoxville, and really from the data that they have shared with us, it looks to be effective. It's you don't know how much of it is causation and how much is correlation, but in the 10 months prior to creating this East District zone, there were three, just in those months, there were 3 non-fatal shootings, a robbery, 4 burglaries, 6 vehicle burglaries, 10 car thefts. In the 10 months since, no fatal or non-fatal shootings, no robberies, only 2 burglaries, only 2 stolen cars, only 4 vehicle burglaries. So the numbers are down in this area. And one of the things that they've done is in these 10 months, they've had 5,000 citizen contacts, which is, what it sounds like. They go and they talk to somebody, they make a record of that, and so they've really tried to make themselves be seen in the community, and it's like I said, the early numbers look good. Of course, crime can change in one incident, but the results have been encouraging enough to where they're going to. They've identified 2 other zones to look at. One is in Western Heights, and the other is in Montgomery Village in South Knoxville.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and of course, these kinds of efforts, we've seen maybe not efforts quite similar to this, but certainly in the past when there had been spikes in crime in various places. Certainly KPD has undertaken different kinds of, high intensity enforcement approaches and so forth. It sounds like maybe the difference here versus those is in the effort to build community, not just have a show of force, but also have a community presence, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's the thought behind it. A lot of departments have done that, where there's an area that's experienced a lot of crime. They flood it with officers and in an enforcement mode, and that's why a lot of these officers they're encouraged to go there when they're not in enforcement mode. I mean, obviously they're the police. They're always enforcing the law, but they're not going there just in response to a report of crime or looking for criminals necessarily. They're there, meeting with people, going to community groups, meetings, and things like that. Now, let's not kid ourselves. Anytime there's an officer in a uniform and a cruiser, it's a show of force. I mean, that's
literally, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not, it's not all, and it serves a couple of purposes. Yeah. I mean, there is a larger police presence there. It's just, and I think a lot of this is aimed as much at, they are wanting to discourage criminal activity, but I think they're also wanting to build these relationships so that when there is criminal activity, the residents of this area or these areas will feel comfortable talking to police officers about it and saying, "Oh yeah, well, I saw this or I heard that or whatever," to help them actually solve crimes. And I think so it serves kind of a dual purpose.
Mm-hmm. Well, and obviously it goes like this is coming from the KPD side. The city is undertaking other efforts apart from the police. You've got the violence interruption stuff. You've got the violence prevention component, and also they will do other things as well. Like if there's a problem with an overgrown lot or an abandoned building, they can get codes out there. They can try to clean those things up. They can. There are things they can do. They can bring in other organizations to help residents who might need assistance. It can be anything. I don't know if I can come up with a for instance here, but if somebody needs some sort of help with an abandoned shed, that people will use to go in and do drugs or sell drugs out of this person's abandoned shed, but they're old or they have a disability and they can't clear it out themselves, then maybe the city can come in and do something there to help them out. So lighting is another thing that they can get the public service department to come in and improve the lighting in a particular area if they need to. So it is a more. I always hate to use the word holistic, but yeah, it's a little bit more of a holistic approach. Although the key component I still think is the KPD presence and that kind of attempt to transform the relationship between KPD and people who live in some of the most violent-prone areas of the city. Yep. Well, I guess we and they will see how it goes.
Yeah, we can. Well, the one thing about KPD under Chief Noel is he is huge about data. Mm-hmm. So we can, they can be checked, they can be monitored to see what that is, and then again, hopefully, this thing, if it works, but then you've got issues there too with, you can't. They have to use this data in identifying these places because you've got issues of racial profiling. You've got issues of potential civil rights violations and things like that. That this is. It needs scrutiny because it's such an important issue.
For sure. Well, and we will continue to monitor it. Let's talk about Donde Plowman, UT Knoxville Chancellor. She delivered her State of the Campus address this past week, and that was accompanied by some news. She is completing 5 years in that position. She started there in 2019. So what did she have to say?
Well, it wasn't so much what she had to say. It was what John Zomchik, the provost, had to say, because she apparently allowed him to say that she was going to be committing to another 5 years as the chancellor at UT Knoxville. She has been, she has been relentlessly upbeat about the university, and she is basically let them know. And I'm assuming that she's let Randy Boyd know because he's the one who hires her and fires her and manages her and as the university president. And
yes, presumably you would not make this sort of announcement with everybody up the chain being on board with it.
Yeah, one would think that they all know, and and she basically just works day to day. I mean, she's, she could be, it's not. I don't think she has a contract necessarily. Although there's an agreement about how much she's going to be paid, but it's not. It's not like Josh Heupel's contract where there's a buyout or anything like that, and automatically rolls over or anything. So, but anyway, she did that in the midst of, and it was kind of interesting that Zomchik was the one who broke the news when he was introducing her at the what they call the flagship address. And that's something she started when she got here. It's a speech, outlining the recent accomplishments and future aspirations for the school, that sort of thing. And this year's speech, she did something, and she's taken this cue from Boyd too. Is Boyd has really emphasized the UT's role as a land grant institution, not just as a research university for the state, but that land grant mission, which is is to help support the state's economy and the state's the easiest thing to point to is the agriculture, because we have the all 95 counties have ag units, and they help area farmers, and that's the land grant institution part of this. And you take that, now that's one thing, but Boyd's also looking at, and Plowman as well, looking at high tech things. The UT collaboration with ORNL is one of those, and so she really emphasized how the programs at UT have practical benefits for the residents of the state of Tennessee. And I think one of her lines was something along the lines of, if the state of if the University of Tennessee is thriving, the state of Tennessee is thriving, and vice versa. But it was, as many of her public statements about the university, relentlessly positive. She's and she is among the administrators. I won't go down to professor level, staff level, but among the administrators, among the at the system level, she's very popular. It hasn't hurt that the athletic programs have done well, and that she gets to talk about those quite a bit,
she hired athletic director Danny White.
Yes.
That's the thing with her being here for 5 years now. Kind of everybody who's there are either her people who she has hired herself, or they are people who were there, like Zomchik, for example, but who have been fully integrated into her team. And so just like Boyd at the system level, Plowman at the campus level, 5 years in, this is solidly her team now. This is her administration.
Oh, absolutely. And, it's, in this desire to serve another 5 years, it's kind of like, she's had, it takes time. This is a huge bureaucratic institution that doesn't move very fast for the most part. And she's had to spend, a good portion of her first 5 years getting, learning the system, getting and deciding what she's going to do with various parts of it. And she's just now, I think, really instituting some of the things that she would like to institute. So the next 5 years would be able to bring those to maturity. I mean, one of the things, there were several things, the 3 new colleges, that they've created. And then, of course, you've got the Institute of American Civics, which wasn't her idea, but she's embraced it and taken it and run with it and made it her own. And so that's
bringing the agricultural campus into the actual fold of the UT Knoxville campus administration, which was a decision made at the system level, but she's the one who's had to actually incorporate that.
Yes, she was, and that's another example of emphasizing the land grant institution side of UT, in that, with ag outside of UT, that's like I say, it's the most visible land grant part of the mission. But with it outside, it's almost like you've got UT and you've got ag, and they're two separate institutions. Bringing it into the fold makes it more of a unified structure that, again, emphasizes the land grant mission.
Well, and this does go hand in hand with, of course, Boyd himself was just granted a 5-year extension by the Board of Trustees a couple of months ago. So he's on board for another 5 years. He has been in that. He had only been in that position for under a year when Plowman was hired at UT, and I think at the time Boyd was still in an interim position. But so they've really been there, kind of hand in hand together throughout the past 5 years. Clearly, they work very well together. There's a real partnership, and I think a lot of trust between the two of them seems to be. And so the fact that she, after he gets his 5-year extension, she then comes out and says, I'll be here for another 5 years too. UT has the opportunity here for a decade of stability at both the system and campus level that they haven't seen in a very long time.
Yeah.
This is unusual in recent history, at least for the university, to have the opportunity to have consistent and cooperative leadership between the system and campus level over the course of a whole decade.
Yeah, that kind of goes to, there's when you watch college sports, the pundits talk about that. They look at institutions that are doing well, like UT, on the upswing, won a national championship in baseball. Football team is turned around. Basketball, Elite Eight, they're doing doing quite well. And they always talk about what they call alignment, where the school administration is in alignment with the athletic department, which is in alignment with the coaches, and they talk about alignment. I don't know why, but they do. But you can see it in UT where you've got Boyd and the relationship that he has with Plowman, back and forth, the trust that they have in each other, and then you go down to the next level where you've got department heads and deans and vice chancellors like Zomchik, and Danny White, but there's a level of trust there, and it goes trickles down and to everybody else, and I think that if you talk to some of the UT people, they see that, and let me tell you, just from covering the board of trustees, absolutely loves Randy Boyd, and they love Donde Plowman. Yeah. And so I don't think the board of trustees will have a problem whatsoever with Plowman staying on another 5 years.
Right, for sure. All right. Well, let's take a quick look ahead to the coming week. There are several things on the civic calendar. The Knox County School Board will have its monthly meetings. Its work session will be Monday, and its voting meeting is Thursday, both of those at 5 p.m. in the Summer Place boardroom. I will say, having taken a look at the agenda, I don't see anything there that's going to jump off and create a whole lot of controversy or even necessarily discussion. It's all fairly mundane stuff, but of course, this is why we go to the meetings. You never know what's going to happen. You can find that agenda on the school system website. And then also Monday at 6:30 p.m., there is going to be a forum. We were just talking about our state legislative races, and so there is actually a public forum on the 30th where this is organized by the League of Women Voters of Knoxville, Knox County, who often organize these kinds of things around elections, and they have invited all of the candidates, and this is going to be at West High School. It'll be from 6:30 to 8 p.m. on Monday. However, as far as, and I am going to be moderating this forum, happy to help out. As far as I know right now, only Democratic candidates have responded affirmatively that they are going to be there. And this is a pattern that we have seen repeatedly in recent years, where Republican candidates for office just really, and especially some of these state house races, but also sometimes county commission races, other races, Republican candidates really don't like coming to candidate forums. And it's that the invitation is still open. Everybody gets asked the same questions. The questions come from the audience. These things are not like some sort of like partisan put up job. I think it's a little bit unfortunate that we do not see more participation in these. However, if you want to hear what the Democrats running for State House have to say, and possibly maybe a Republican or two, we will see. You can come out to that 6:30 Monday at West High School. And then Scott, I think also Monday, Vice Mayor Tommy Smith is having his own little, I don't know if it's a forum exactly, but community discussion about the ballot referendum on city council elections, right?
Yes. We've already had a couple of those that other council members have hosted. Smith is hosting this one. He represents South Knoxville. He's this one will be at 6:30 p.m. On Monday at the Roundup, kind of an iconic lunch spot in South, the breakfast and lunch spot in South Knoxville. But they will be talking about the election referendum. There are two questions that are going to be on the ballot. One has to do with the timing of the 5th district election, the cycle it's on. But that's the one that's the most the most potential for change is the one that is asking to adopt if people want to adopt an at-large only election system, and a yes vote would do that. A no vote would make the district races where only district voters could vote in them, which is a change from the way we used to do it. We've talked about this many times before. We won't go into it anymore now. But if you want to find out more about the referendum, especially if you don't have to be from South Knoxville, especially if you're from South Knoxville, that'll be a good place to find out some things. And then Tuesday night at 6 o'clock, the city council will be meeting, and a couple of big things there. Again, with South Knoxville, what is it with those folks down there? The council will be considering 4 different contracts totaling around $17 million for a streetscape project for Sevier Avenue on the South Waterfront. And what they're going to be doing is they're going to be putting utilities underground. They're going to be improving a railroad crossing there, and also installing a roundabout at the corner of it's not really even a corner. It's a weird intersection where Sevier Avenue, which runs east to west in front of along the riverfront, or not right parallel to the river. There are streets between it and the river, but and then it makes a curve to the south at the same point where Island Home Avenue comes in from the east, and Foggy Bottom Street which goes to the river, comes in.
I love Foggy Bottom Street. I just want to say it's one of my favorite street names in Knoxville. Foggy
It
Bottom.
is one of mine as well, and it is not changing. But what is changing is they're going to replace that weird, funky intersection with a roundabout, so that in hopes that traffic will be moving more smoothly, more safely. We've had roundabouts that have popped up all over the place in Knoxville. It seems like you'll be going down a road and somewhere in Knox County, and there's a roundabout there all of a sudden that you didn't even know was going to be built there, but they're around, and so people are getting more used to them. They are easy to navigate and safe and safer because they don't have as many what they call conflict points as regular intersections do. Anyway, so that is going to be on the agenda. This whole thing, and interesting here, they're doing this, and this is going to take 18 months to, probably about 18 months to do. And the big thing is, like I said, putting the utilities underground. That's going to be a big deal. But they're doing that. This is a growing and vibrant commercial area. They're going to be keeping one lane in each direction on Sevier Avenue open, and trying to work with these businesses to make sure that that's however they're damaged by this, they mitigate it. But one of the things is this is going on at the same time that the Gay Street Bridge is closed and will remain closed for a long, long time. So, so there's going to be kind of short-term pain for what officials are hoping is long-term gain. The other thing that's on the agenda for Tuesday is council is going to be asked to authorize KCDC to put together a Magnolia Avenue redevelopment plan, define the areas, what's going to go on in the redevelopment area. This is something that Mayor Kincannon has talked about doing for a long time. basically to try to spur investment along Magnolia between the Burlington and the zoo, that area, and downtown.
And that's something that Mayor Kincannon talked about in her run for re-election, that was going to be a priority to get that redevelopment plan in place.
Yeah, and Tuesday night, don't get me wrong, they're not going to be approving a plan. What they're doing is they're telling KCDC to bring us a plan. Mm-hmm. That would be what they would be doing. So,
right,
which is what KCDC does. So that's their job.
Well, we will be back here next week to talk about those things and anything else that happens in the interim. Hopefully, we will be able to return to in-person recording next week. In the meantime, I hope everybody is dry and safe. Thanks, as always, to Seth Barber, our producer, for his work there at Barbarian Productions. Our theme music is by Will Wright, and we will talk to you later.
Welcome to Compass Points, the weekly podcast for CompassKnox.com. CompassKnox.com is your best source for news and politics in Knoxville and Knox County. Your hosts today are Scott Barker and Jesse Mayshark, the founders of CompassKnox.com. You can find their daily in-depth coverage and subscribe at CompassKnox.com. The Compass Point podcast is brought to you in conjunction with Almost an Agreement. Almost an Agreement is a layman's attempt to get a handle on the workings in government and politics that we deal with every day. Check them out at almostanagreement.com or subscribe for free on your favorite podcast provider. If you'd like to learn more about the topics discussed on today's podcast, go to CompassKnox.com and subscribe for in-depth coverage and much more. And many thanks to William Wright for composing our theme song. Compass Points is a partnership of Barking Shark Media and Barbarian Productions, and recorded by Lord Seth A. Barber at Barbarian Studios, Knoxville, Tennessee.